Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me. It's great to see that I won out over the beer and the food. So thanks for joining me. Oh yes, people brought their beer in the room. So yeah, we got this part covered. So all right, cool. So thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking a bit about how do you get started? What do you do if you're in the middle of your career or kind of post? And really kind of why I kind of started this is I went through a lot, kind of, I guess, shall we say, reinventing the wheel or learning how to do these things the first time. And there's a lot of difficulties that I ran into that I think that if I had known, it would have saved me a lot of heartache, pain, and time. And truly what it comes down to is, first off, this is about you guys. This is about me. So I'm going to be sharing information about my past. But truthfully, what I'm hoping is that you guys are going to come away from this, with the idea of figuring out how to avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made. I also think that as a community, it kind of strengthens us all, because it's not really about having, one or two guys that are just kind of like those ninjas that really just figured out they're the badasses, we kind of call on them. When there's problems, I think that the more we are strengthened as a community, we're just united and stronger in general. You kind of have to help each other out, And also to inspire you guys. If I can have you guys come away with just one thing that helps you out from this, I can kind of consider that a win. So, kind of helps to start like who I am. I mean, as far as you guys know, I'm just some guy up here giving a talk. So I figured it gives a little bit of a help to kind of give like a background about who I am, what I've kind of gone through and whatnot before I start saying, hey, you should do these things from advice standpoint. So I guess, oh yeah, by the way, so I love moving around. And the fact that I'm tied to this is kind of driving me nuts a little bit, because I like to engage more with you guys and all that. So, all right, just bear with me. Also, my humor, I'm not trying to intend to offend anybody. So, but I try to do it in context. So just keep that in mind. So, probably the oldest memory. Who remembers this movie? All right, who actually remembers when the movie came out? I love much of your hand. So I didn't know this until like years later, but apparently when this was on TV, my parents said I was always glued to it. I was like 2 or 3 at the time, but I had no idea. Years later, here I am doing hacking, but who would have thought? So who in here actually knows what a record player is or has ever seen one? Okay, cool. All right, for those of you who haven't ever seen a record player before, I promise you there is one in this picture. But I kind of grew up being that kid that was really kind of just being exploring, creative, and all that kind of stuff. And my sister had this record player one time, and I promise she's not in this picture. So, and it was one of those types that I guess you had some that plugged into the wall and some that didn't. But I'm thinking, all right, whatever. It's just a record player. It's got a motor inside. It spins. Music comes out of it. And she loved this thing. She'd play like the same like Winnie the Pooh record all the time on it. One day I happened to be going by, and I'm like, there's a light inside that record player. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to figure this out. So being the older brother, I'm kind of going, hey, Heather, there's a light on inside that. We should figure out what's inside there. Of course, being the fact that I'm her older brother and she'd been through the stuff that I've ripped apart before, she is suddenly going on the defensive, freaking out, screaming to mom to protect her record player. Unfortunately, at one point, she did a pretty good job of protecting it until one day she left it unguarded, and needless to say, the thing went to pieces. I did find out what was inside there. So anybody in here want to give a guess or to what they thought that light was that was inside that record player? Vacuum tube, exactly. So yeah, that was kind of my first, at least when I remember, my first time actually really going into stuff, figuring out how stuff works and just ripping it apart. The thing never worked again, I'm sorry to say, but whatever. So later along, who remembers these things? Okay, if you've never seen these before, what you will really want to take notice of the fact that there's no grounding plugs on these. And as a little boy, someone thought it was a great idea to give me a whole bunch of these. And I'm thinking, how can I tinker and make these things, have fun with it? So I'm in the basement one day and I have like 3 or 4 of these things. I plug them together so that this long little line, stacked out from each other. I've got nothing to plug into them. I'm just like playing with them. I plug into the outlet and I'm thinking, all right, well, what else can I do with this? I happen to have this little nightlight. A little 2-prong job. I'm like, hey, I can plug it into the end of that and, I'll have something that actually works. I'm pushing it in there. It wouldn't fit because, these things weren't really exactly designed to be like, unified standards. And my finger slipped. And the next thing I know, I'm coming to like 10 feet from the wall. I'm going, what the hell just happened? And just trying to take it all in. Then the headaches set in, and I think it's because when I flew across the room, I smacked my head on the concrete, and I just was like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? So, I had an interesting childhood growing up. So needless to say, somehow I survived my childhood. I don't know why, it's a miracle. And I started doing coding in magazines. At some point in the past when magazines, I don't even know what magazine it was, but they give all this kind of cool QBasic code and whatever, and you can kind of program it and whatever. So I happened to have one of these things growing up. It's called a TI-99 4A. And that's, you know, the exact thing right there. And by the way, I can't believe it. I think my parents must have known that I ripped stuff apart because more recently I found another identical copy in the exact same shipping box and everything. It had never been touched. So I think they're expecting me to rip apart the first one and have a backup for, you know, when I damage that one. So yeah, kind of QBasic, started programming with that stuff. And who remembers this stuff? Yeah, I hear oohs in the audience. Yeah, so there are two really big games that I think kind of launched with QBasic. I think it was on my computer at least. It was Gorillas and Nibbles. And the gist of it is it's kind of like tanks and worms nowadays, but you got two gorillas and you put in the angle and velocity that you want to throw bananas at each other, and they explode when they hit, you know, detonate on the target. And whatever, it's a fun game, whatever. And I realized that I could go into the code and change the detonation of the bananas. So I was playing around one time and I got the detonation so big it basically wiped out the entire screen. So you can think of like a shockwave. It's hard to explain when I'm talking about it, but that was the first time I realized I could start playing and manipulating stuff that already existed and it already worked. Then this was fun. I think I had probably the coolest dad. I'm like literally like, you know, like 10 years old. He comes home and is like, here's your copy of Borland C++ in your compiler. I'm like, sweet. I fire this thing up, and I didn't know what the hell to do at all. I didn't really have any guidance. I'm like, I want to program stuff. I had no idea what like a main function was or all this stuff. But it was just this incredible opportunity that I feel like if I had just a little bit of guidance looking back, I don't know where I'd be today. Maybe I just would be an antisocial person completely because all I would be doing is writing code. But, you know, it's funny when you look back at your life, you know, some of those opportunities that either became something or didn't based upon like nurturing. So I mentioned that to say that, you know, if you have kids or you see other younger people, just giving them that little push can make all the difference in the world. Because if I had been able to just write one main loop or just a little bit, it would have given me that, like that foothold to kind of take the next step and the next step. Oh yeah, okay, cool. All right, so then as my life continued going on, I kind of, at that point, started doing a lot more tinkering and developing. By this point, I was ripping apart computers, and this was back in the days before they, you know, even had the, what do you want to call it? The color coding on the motherboard, so you could easily reverse and hook up things wrong and all that. And then there's this one time where my own computer was down for some reason, and my dad was like, hey, I've got this laptop I use for work. You should use it to do your school project. It had WordPerfect 5.1 or whatever it was. So I'm like, all right, sweet. And I don't even know if I actually did the report, but I happened to go in and start up WordPress and realized I can open up all these other files. Well, I found that there was a command.exe file that I could open. So I opened it up in WordPerfect, and of course it was gibberish and made no sense. And I'm like, oh, I must get out of here. But I must have changed a character or two inside there because as soon as I exited, it gave me this message on the command line basically saying, please insert system disk or hard drive. And I'm like, oh crap. So I rebooted the system and it's booting. And in the first line, please insert system disk to continue. I'm like, oh crap. Fortunately, I think I had a system disk floating around. I stuck it in the system. It didn't like that. It was stuck in a loop like consistently. My dad was not happy. It cost him over $800 to get that thing fixed. I still don't even know how they fixed it because it was you couldn't even get to a command prompt to get it to like install. So he never let me touch his laptop ever again until like 15 years later. And then, of course, he's coming to me for everything to fix his stuff. So, yeah, it's funny how that kind of flips around. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, Dad, stop asking me for help. But yeah, actually, I should have had like a bill. You know, I'm like, I paid the $800 back, man. I'm done. So later on, I mean, again, I'm still around like 12 years old. I got a hold of IRC. And again, I don't even know how this happened, but it really, really changed my life. A lot of the stuff I didn't realize until I was putting this presentation together to realize what had really happened. So I'm like, or whatever, somehow I got on some IRC channels and I found myself in a channel that was talking about hacking. And I think a lot of these guys were probably at college in T1 lines because I'm on my, you know, epic 33.6 baud modem. You know, people are sharing files. It was pretty cool because I think it was my first real experience kind of connecting with the culture. But met some cool people too, and I don't know. I don't even know if knew I was a kid or not. But next thing you know, I'm like, yeah, hook me up with all this cool stuff. And I ended up getting myself mail bombed on AOL. So basically, in short, AOL at one point had a limitation on the amount of files that you can have, or emails in your email box. And they just flooded me. And to this day, I don't know if they were trying to actually mail bomb me or be funny, because they sent me everything. I had everything from like AOL hell, all these like cracked passwords things. It was my first exposure to, what was it? The Anarchist Cookbook and the Terrorist Handbook or something. I forget the inversion of it. Man, you're 12. You're like, this is the coolest stuff ever, how to make explosives. So, the gist of it is, I got tons of awesome fun stuff. And I'm thinking, all right, I've got a 33.6 modem. I don't know what the heck to download. And I'm like, oh, Duke Nukem. So I just downloaded Duke Nukem and I played that the whole time, instead of taking advantage of all this other cool stuff that if I had really known, from tools for sure. So basically, AOL Hell was a program that would allow you to get a free AOL access. It just kept generating new accounts that were good for 30 days. I think there was something that allowed you to spoof or to pretend to be like a system administrator or whatever. It was lots of fun stuff. But again, I had no clue of the wealth of knowledge that was at my fingertips. Of course, then this came out. It still holds a special place in my heart. I don't know why it was, could be the hacker culture, all that, or it could have been the fact that Angelina Jolie was in it, and I was right around that certain age. And, of course, also, I realized what changed my life too was Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, and of course, Victoria's Secret. So, yeah, alright, so going post high school, that's when I kind of started my first business, and I'm thinking, alright, I can do this, I got this, yeah, I can run my own business, start doing my own thing solo. It started out doing a lot of just building computers, writing software programs, all that kind of stuff. I found it transitioned into doing more like blue team defense security too, but I didn't really know what I was doing. It was just kind of like self-taught stuff. Hey, all right, so let's use SSH, let's just do whatever. We can encrypt stuff for communications, but this was just stuff that I kind of learned on my own. There was really no formal training with this at all. Finally got a bachelor's degree in computer science. Finally, I say that because working full time and also going to school doesn't work well, and your GPA really kind of takes a hit. So if I could look back on that, I think I'd kind of really focused on my degree, and I'll kind of explain why on that a little bit later. But it was also my first real experience to realize that I could do hacking as a profession, and it was just so incredible to me. I was taking a graduate level class, and it was kind of a stripped down CEH semester class, but it was incredible because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this stuff, I've been having fun, but people get paid to do this stuff. So it just really excited me, and it really kind of helped leverage me or push me for my career. But going through school, they weren't really giving you any kind of guidance. Truth be told, like even taking the class, they practically had you sign a waiver to make sure that you weren't going to use this stuff for malicious behavior. And at the end of the class, the most dangerous thing we did was do like a port scan. I'm like, you guys, you got to be kidding me. But it still gave me the tools and enough direction to figure out where to kind of go next and kind of rush. After that, I was working with a software development company, and they did a lot of web hostings, writing programs, and they ended up going bankrupt. And I was like, hey, all right, I've run a company before. I'm going to start a web hosting company, and I'll just take all their clients, sit back, easy money. I don't have to do anything but maintain a server and all that. Oh, no. That didn't really work out too well as I was hoping, and yeah, whatever. But the good stuff that came out of it is that I got to see a lot of real world attacks as they happened, and they were coming to me asking me for help. So there were some sites that had a lot of high level traffic on it, and these people weren't exactly designed, trying to keep their code safe and all this stuff. So they come to me for help. So it was a great opportunity to see all kinds of stuff in the wilds. Just play with it, kind of reverse engineering exploits, seeing bots, watching them actually behave when instead of being in a controlled environment, I'm able to watch this cool stuff happen. At the end of it, I realized what I really don't want to do was really not system administration. It was really pushed me forward more to kind of go on that attack side of it. A little bit more of that. I don't remember where exactly it was in my career I realized, but protecting people was really everything to me. I don't really know where that revelation came in, but it started really shaping that drive and where my future was going with that. Kind of continued consulting, but it's when I really started connecting with security conferences. I think GrrCON was one of the first conferences that I ever came to, and I know I kind of keep saying a lot about a game changer and stuff like that, and it changed my life, but it really made a difference. And then what was really fun is I started dealing with criminal cases too, people kind of doing hacking and getting involved with that, and that's still kind of unfolding. Started working with the Michigan Cyber Range around 2013. that was awesome because I got to do a lot of heavy development, writing computer code. But the thing about it was I was able to write code that was doing offensive and defensive stuff too. So we're building tactical exercises, helping people play in a game environment. So you got typically you hear these cyber exercises, you got the red team and the blue team and they're doing stuff, but someone's got to make that environment, right? So this is about building that stuff up so that people could play in it, capture the flags, training, writing custom malware, rootkits, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But then leadership. This was my first time really getting exposed to being in a position where I've got to guide and direct stuff because the projects had gotten so big that I couldn't do stuff anymore. So we really kind of made our team bigger and all that. So, oh yeah, by the way, so shout out to, I don't know if they're in here or not, but I figured I'd give them a shout out. I love working with them over there. They didn't realize this, but I actually happened to capture a photo of them at work one time. I figured I'd share this with you guys. So this is them hard at work at the office. So, and then most recent venture. This is incredible. You could just stare at it forever. So, like, what is going on here? So, and then most recent venture, started a company called Vector Rock, and that focuses on doing pen testing. So it's kind of getting back to my roots and helping people make their systems secure. So yes, I'm kind of quoting myself here, but to me, security is a way of life. It's a mindset and a heart set. It's not about saying, all right, this is it's just one piece, facet. It's everything. It should really encompass you and become really who you are. You kind of eat and breathe it. So who in here? I'm going to throw 2 questions at you guys here. What do you guys think? Just shout them out. What the greatest challenge is for security professionals in our industry right now? Okay. So I actually tend to go, and I actually look more, a little introverted with this, that ego is actually our greatest challenge. And I think that more for ourselves. Because we kind of get stuck in our comfort zones. We like to stick with what we know. We feel comfortable there. You don't necessarily like to be wrong, and we just feel safe there. So until we can overcome our egos, yeah, you get the point. All right, so second question. What do you guys think the top 4 reasons are that people get into cybersecurity? Want to break stuff. Curiosity? Technical challenge. Okay. Jobs. Yeah. All right, so these aren't necessarily in any particular order. I haven't done any research on these, but this is my experience of what I've seen. So the first one I should say is money. I don't know if you guys seen a lot where people are going, wow, there's a lot of money in this industry. I'm gonna dive into it and just get the big bucks. Second, curious. They want to explore, be creative, understand how this stuff works, and just have fun. I also think that protecting people, kind of like police, we're trying to do it in our daily lives, keep citizens safe. I think there's people that get into this to protect people in cyber. Also, again, we come back to ego, power over others. So if you don't know what I'm talking about with this, and you don't really get the relation with this, think about when you've gone to a conference and you got those security guys, and they're there, at the conference doing security, and they're walking down the hallway. They're like, "Yeah, I'm awesome. Get down off of there. Get out of the way. Whatever." They're not there to necessarily protect people or keep people safe. They're there because it gives them a sense of power. So that's why I relate that to our industry as well. So now that I've totally kind of trashed on that a little bit, show of hands here. Who is considering becoming a security professional or in the process of building that and kind of going there? Awesome. Cool. Yeah, whether you're on the tech side or the policy side. So all right, I figure I'd give you guys a little look into what this might look like for you on a daily basis if you're kind of going into the technical side of that. So it's kind of close, but I think it's probably more like this. Yeah, right. All right, so you got the red team and the blue team smacking down the defender. Death kill here. Oh, okay, yeah. Flying around. All right, blue guy gets angry. What is going on? Gets angry at red team guy. Take that. All right, yeah. So now if you're going on to the policy side of the house, I figured I'd give you guys a taste of what I think your daily life is probably going to look like. So if you haven't noticed, I'm more of a tech guy than a policy guy. So. He's about right. Nice. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So, moving on. I'm going to focus a lot more on the tech side of it as opposed to policy side because it's more of where my background is. But I try to, as far as what I could remember at the time, narrow down the different areas where I think that people can really pursue. So it's areas of hardware hacking, application hacking, networking, encryption, physical security, social engineering, and I think there might be a couple others. But I think social engineering is a huge area that people overlook because we focus so much in general about, okay, I hack this application or that it's really a big need in our industry because what's the weakest link in security? Yay! All right. So I think one of the biggest misnomers that we want to make sure that if you're coming into the industry, you got to realize is you don't have to know everything. There's nobody that knows everything, and truly, it's impossible. That shouldn't be something that you've got to feel afraid about or that it's a challenge that you've got to overcome. It's just a reality. Trying to figure out where to start, right? Well, if you look at those different areas, just pick somewhere. Just start having fun, just start playing. There's no wrong way to do it. So to give you an example, for me, I started actually, true hacking when I started playing with Wi-Fi networks when I was living somewhere and needed internet. Which by the way, I found out later, I think it's still the case, it might be, that hacking wireless access points in the state of Michigan is considered a felony. I don't have a felony, don't worry about it. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, that would have been helpful to know, a little while back. And then I started doing application hacking as well. But it really comes down to learning the basics. The more you understand how something works, the better you're going to be able to hack. So, take wireless, for example. If you understand what frequencies these wireless networks are talking on or how they communicate or the fundamentals, it's going to help you break into things better or understand how these attacks work. You don't really have to reinvent the wheel either. I think there's this concept of people get out there and they're like, all right, well, I'm going to build a program or I'm going to write a port scanner. But why? There's tons of applications out there. Unless there's a particular reason why something exists, don't waste your time. Use something that's already out there. Don't feel like you've got to improve yourself or make a point. Start with what's out there and build off it. So some ideas of things you can do with that. Reaching out to peers, other people in the industries, other people's research, or even classes. After I'd taken that class at college, and I was like, all right, it just whetted my appetite to figure out more. I knew what it was based off, that certified ethical hacking class, and I went out and took it. That helped me just get a broad enough knowledge of all the different areas to help me get started even more. Because if I had tried to do all this stuff on my own, it would just been a waste of time to a certain degree. But where are we trying to go with this? To what end would you want to get to? What are you shooting for with your skills in any kind of particular area? Well, I believe it's this. You want to get to the point where when you're looking for information or trying to solve a problem, Googling it is going to be futile because you know so much about it and the problem that you're trying to solve is so complex that you're just not going to get any kind of hits. The best example I could think of to share with you guys was I was working on building a solution one time that it was pretty cool because we had several different computers that had to access the same data at really high speeds at block level without having to worry about overwriting each other and all this kind of stuff. But if one system was accessing it, we wanted to make sure it was locked for the other people. So I ran into something called GFS2, Global File System 2, and it was a lot of fun. It was open source stuff, started playing with it, but there was a point where to solve the problems, it was so kind of under the radar that people didn't know about it, that you really kind of had to just figure this stuff out on your own. So it was taking other people's stuff, figuring out how to tweak it, fix it, and play with it. That's really where you want to get. But again, you don't have to do in all these areas. Just pick an area that you like and love and just kind of run with it. And we're trying to get you to the point where you can think outside the box. So I think I did have another good example of this, but the idea being, if something's meant to use in one way, and you figure out, all right, well, I can use it this other way. What helps with that is, one, feeling that, you can just have the freedom to try and do whatever. You're not constrained to trying to do something the wrong way. It's okay to make, mistakes and do different things. But also that, it skipped my brain. Anyways, think outside the box. It's a good thing. Also, one time, I was at the conference and I ran across this guy that was talking. He seems like an incredible guy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get this guy's advice. To this day, I still don't know if it was really good advice or not, but, this guy was a hacker, he was getting up sharing all his stories. I go up to him afterwards like, dude, tell me, I'm just starting out, what do I do? And he tells me to go get an MBA. And I was very confused like this. Why would I go out and get a master's of business administration? I still haven't solved that one yet, but I figured I'd still pass that on because somebody might have an idea or light bulb moment with that. So shifting gears, interpersonal skills. I believe that that's something that we majorly overlook as an industry. I think it actually can make and break your career. It makes the difference between if you end up being the guy that's, with his stapler down in the basement and nobody wants to talk to, versus the guy that's in the CISO of a company. Number one thing, listen. I don't think we listen enough at all. Once heard someone say or share that when people are conversing back and forth or having a debate, the person that's listening to the guy that's doing the talking spends more time trying to think about what he wants to say and refute next to the guy that, once the guy that's talking stops talking. So I think if we were to step back a second and actually listen to what the other person says, that not only do you come across as a better listener, but you feel that there's more of a dialogue, you can make progress in your conversations there. It's also difficult to process feedback from others. Personal example with this is actually kind of a painful one. I started working with this business. I came in as an engineer, like level 2 or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm awesome. You guys are noobs. I don't know what you're doing. And I was promised to do security work with them, but I ended up doing some simple application stuff with them. And I'm just looking at some of these guys going, why is it taking you 3 months to solve this when I can do it in a matter of days? And as a result, I started burning bridges. I started alienating people. It turned out a lot of the project managers wanted to stop working with me simply because, in short, I thought I was better with everybody. As a result, that didn't end up well, and I ended up losing my project and work with them. But looking back, I could either have gone one of two things. I could either said, all right, well, you guys are stupid, whatever, or I could said, all right, well, what actually happened here, and what can I learn from it? So that's what I'm talking about with this processing feedback, and kind of like with self-reflection on stuff to figure out. Let's focus on the problem, or face it, being willing to go there and learn from it. So some thoughts with this could be, are you facing the same problem again and again and again? When you go into a meeting and you say something and people are giving you sour looks again and again, chances are there's something that you're doing and you want to look into that. So if you're having issues with that, figuring out problems, talk with somebody that you trust. Ask them for feedback, but also don't shoot them down if they give you their honest opinion too. Going forward, we're looking at communication. I couldn't think of a shorter way to put that one down on the slide there. But what good does it do if you have all the information in the world, but you don't know how to communicate it to somebody? Whether you're trying to help somebody. Let's say you know that somebody going down this way or building a program this way is bad. Well, if you can't explain to them how it's bad or why it's bad, well, you're not being effective. You're not really able to do a good job with that. Maybe you don't really care about that. Maybe you're just having a debate with somebody and you know that you're right and somebody else is wrong. If you can't communicate that concept to somebody, again, that's not helpful. In our industry, I think we've got this concept everybody's really good technically, but we talk technical, right? And then when we talk with people that are non-technical, they just don't get it. I found that there's it's just lack of a better way to put it, people will pay top dollar if you're able to communicate technical information to non-technical people in ways that they understand it. It is like gold. It's also helpful to prove yourself what you're worth to people in interviews. You're worth something. You are worth value, and you've got to be able to convey that or convince people of this. Also getting that raise or promotion. If you're not able to communicate what you bring to the team, how are you able to take that to the next level? A good story of that, one time I was interviewing this guy, and he had gotten to the point where we brought him into the office, and we wanted to see how he's doing skill-wise. So, he is a man, all that, but I start talking with him to figure out, all right, well, do we want to bring this guy in? How does he work out? And he started going off like a used car salesman. And I'm like, he might have known his stuff. He might have been actually good. But during this interview, the way he was conveying and communicating, really, he didn't sell himself at all. And we ended up choosing somebody else. So building connections. So we talked about, you got your tech skills. We're talking about the interpersonal relationships for yourself. But I also want us to focus on building connections in that way with people around us. So, well, why, you might ask? The world is much bigger than you realize. What you know is very small compared to what everybody else knows. think about it as you've been here listening to other people talk. Just before here, there's a gentleman up here talking about defeating those captcha systems. And, when you listen to people talking about their engagements and their different talks, unless you spent the same time that they did on this stuff, you're never going to hear about it. So it's incredible, when you really get yourself out there and you realize how much is out there. At the same time, the world is a lot smaller than what you realize too. And what I mean by this is, over the past couple of years, as I go to all these conferences around the world, you start to see these same people. That's important because you got to realize that you think our community is really big, but in reality, it's really small. Last thing you want to do is burn bridges because, you make one guy angry and you might be looking at this project and you want to start working with it, but he knows you and he tells him, no, don't go with this person because they're a jerk or whatever. But at the same time, maybe you've got a good relationship with that person and there's a couple people that are trying to get this project. And because this guy knows you and, he trusts you, he can say, hey, I know this is a person to go with. You should go with him. Now, I'm not talking about brown nosing to the point where you're trying to suck up, but just getting to know people on a real level and really connecting with them can make a big difference. Also, going solo doesn't cut it. Did that for many years. You waste a lot of time with that web hosting company. I spent a lot of my time just writing invoices and stuff like that. That sucks. I don't want to write invoices. Sure, all right, patch updates on servers, one thing, but you want to focus where your passion is, not responding to people's emails, asking why their emails, well, actually, you can't really respond to people's emails, say why their emails are down, but, communicating with people as to what their problems are with their servers or what do they do next. It's not, you waste your time on these little things instead of focusing on where your strengths are. Usually it doesn't end well. I spend, 2 hours trying to make an invoice for a template that somebody could do in 5 minutes. Their 5-minute one's probably better than mine, and what did? I want to use theirs, and I just wasted on something that looks kind of like crap. Kind of inhibits, like I said, inhibits you from focusing on what you want to do, because really at the end of the day, you only have so many hours. That was actually probably one of the biggest lessons I learned working with the Michigan Cyber Range, is that, you only have so many hours in a day. If you can work with others and collaborate with others, the amount of stuff that you can do potential-wise is just incredible. Also, burnout. Been there, done that. Sucks. Not cool. As I mentioned, too, with Michigan Cyber Range, I learned more about collaborating and communicating, working with the Michigan Cyber Range in those 2 to 3 years than all 15 years, I think, of past work experience putting that together. It was because I was not doing things on my own. I was willing to go places that felt uncomfortable, have conversations that were difficult, and just push myself to the extra limit. Conferences. Obviously, you're at a conference, you get the whole conference thing, but that's a great thing that you can do to start leveraging those. They've got them all over the country. I think some of the ones that at least come to mind right now, you got ShmooCon, of course, GrrCON, shout out to you guys know about. B-Sides, DerbyCon, what's that? ThoughtCon, yeah, you got Black Hat, you got, B-Sides Las Vegas, all these great conferences. Meetup groups, even in your local area. Great way to meet people, start connecting, all that kind of stuff. This to me is probably one of the biggest ones. Letting your ego go. Who in this room has issues letting their ego go? Show of hands. Yeah, right. Yeah, those of you guys not raising your hands, they want to let your ego go, that you have issues with your ego. Okay, cool. So I think the first challenge is being able to admit when you don't know something. It's kind of a challenge, but I'd rather work with somebody that can admit that they don't know something than somebody who pretends like they know something and they really don't. Because to me, you get respect. I'd much rather work with that person that I can respect or work with that's going to be honest with me than the guy that's just going to pretend that he doesn't really know what's going on. I think it's also helpful too, because when you're able to let your ego go, you're able to get past those hurdles, those personal things that are preventing you from going forward. So, all right, let's say you're not really good at Metasploit, but you pretend to be. Well, until you can admit that, you're not really going to be able to kind of go that area and kind of get better. Or, in certain areas, we just, don't want to go there because it feels hurtful, or just we kind of feel sensitive about it. So that's kind of what we're talking about with that. It's also, it's helpful to make friends. You let your ego go. You're going to make more friends, be more personable, because we all know, there's nothing. Oh, I went too far. Okay, there we go. There's nothing harder than trying to be friends with that person who basically thinks that they're better than everybody else. So I was also thinking too, I think this might be the first time ever was done, but first time anybody's ever quoted a Bible verse at a security convention, but it's like, hey, okay, whatever. I like this one. This is actually pretty good. So it goes, go to the ant, O sluggard, observe her ways and be wise, which having no chief, officer, or ruler prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provisions in the harvest. How long will you lie down, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest? Your poverty will come in like a vanguard, and your need be like an armed man. All right, so what are we talking about with this? I think first off, it's talking about setting goals for yourself, being able to dream big. If you don't really start going anywhere or kind of have some plan to go somewhere, you're not going to get anywhere. So, all right, so what do goals look like? All right, so mine, world domination, right? So always as a little kid, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have some huge company that's so big that I'll be able to kind of take over the world, you know? And yeah, I don't know. I think I'm slowly making it there. Check back with me in 10 years and, you know, I'll be like, I told you so. So with goals, don't be afraid to take risks. I think that it stops us a lot of times where we don't want to get outside, again, of our comfort zones. Truthfully, making mistakes are okay. I give you permission to make mistakes. It is completely okay to make mistakes. Don't let that stop you from moving forward. Think about it like this. If someone told you that you're going to be a multi-millionaire, but first you had to go through 100 mistakes where you'd lose everything, would you rather have all those 100 mistakes at the very beginning at once? Or would you rather stretch that over 20 years? It's pretty obvious, right? I mean, wouldn't you want to make all the mistakes first and then live the rest of your life, you know, as this multimillionaire? So it's okay to make mistakes because it's going to help you get farther, help you succeed and progress faster. So this is incredible. I actually timed myself that this was going to be like a 70-minute presentation. So I went faster and now it's much shorter than I expected. So before I actually ask for questions, I want you to take this time to kind of, or not this time, or leaving here, I want you to think about these things to reflect on. First, take time to invest in yourself. It'll pay off. You really don't have to know everything. And you really want to get outside of those comfort zones. And lastly, you know, dare to dream big. So what kind of questions do you have in the back? So invest in yourself. Great question. What do I mean by invest in myself? So I'm talking about taking the time to, instead of, you know, maybe playing video games at home, you know, in your off time, that you're spending time doing research or just spending quality time going out to these meetup groups, doing things that are helping you get to your goals. So if your goal is to be somebody that's maybe awesome in Python, well, do stuff that helps, you know, spend time doing those Python classes, come up with reasons to program stuff in Python. Did I get my MBA? No, I did not get my MBA. Yes, you talking about the first four? Yes, so let's go back to that. Not the Victoria's Secret one. Okay. I wish, man. When I rule the world, that will be my backyard. Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. So for those of you who didn't hear that, gentleman was sharing about his experience. He's been in the industry for what, 30 something years? Yeah, yeah, and we're discussing the motivations. And yes, to your point too, I think that once you get entrenched in this industry and become more about it, that those people that are really successful, they really focus on the areas of, the curiosity and kind of protecting people. The money kind of flows with that, but I find that people that are just getting into the industry, their motivations, people coming in just for the money or that power trip, they really don't succeed. They kind of hit a wall and they've either got to make a choice where, all right, is the money the motivation? Because we know at some point that's just going to leave. You see it in every industry after X amount of years. It's the high point, but then that kind of dips off. I think for us, it's going to be a while because the fact that there's so few people that really have good skills in that regard. But yes, I think my point with this is to say that, be the person that is curious and wants to protect people, and the rest will kind of flow naturally. Okay. So the question was regarding building up your skills. There at some point in the future, these automated skills will replace us. That's why I think interpersonal skills really make all the difference. Because at the end of the day, some of the attacks do change, right? I mean, we're no longer using DCOM. Well, actually, I guess we are still using DCOM exploits to take over these Windows boxes that haven't been updated in like 20 years. But yeah, the concepts of the attacks still stay the same, although the specific attacks do change. So, I think that's why interpersonal skills are the most important, because you can keep up with it. The deeper you understand stuff, you can translate it and explain all that stuff that's happening. But do I really think we're going to ever truly be replaced by automated tools? I find that it hard to believe, and this is my reasoning why. Humans make stuff, right? And another human figures out how to break it. And these automation tools are built by humans. And it's an arms race. Just like back in the day, we went from sticks and stones, bows and arrows, swords, huge machines of war. Now we're talking about doing attacks over the ether. It's an arms race. So there's always going to be that battle kind of going back and forth. So someone can always build a better, whatever, offense, defense. So the question was, if you're looking at getting into social engineering, where do you start? How do you get involved? So thank you for bringing that up, because as I was firing through my slides, because I was concerned we weren't going to have enough time, I skipped over an important point. Personally, I believe that women who are trying to get into cybersecurity have a huge one-up, maybe probably like a 10-up over guys, especially in the field of social engineering. How many people, when they see a girl have an issue, say, "Oh, I'll help you. I'll give you what you need"? So I think there's just this natural, inherent sense that if women are looking to get into cybersecurity, attack that, own that. That's a great way to start getting into cybersecurity, because 99%, well, I don't know, maybe that's a little high, but 90% of all the people in tech are guys. Yes, of course we want to save the day. We want to get that date, whatever, So going back to your question yourself, because you are obviously not a woman, unless you are, and okay. So, how do you get started with that? That's a great question, because personally myself, I haven't done a lot with social engineering. I know there's a lot of workshops and places, I think at GrrCON, where they do social engineering itself. One of my coworkers was sharing me that I think it was this past year, the year before, where in real time, they social engineered Comcast and got the guy at Comcast, the tech guy, to not only give all this personal information away, but give the browser that the guy was running, the version of Internet Explorer, the Flash plugin that he was running, and everything that he needed. Oh, and convince the guy that he was going to send him a PDF that he needed to open with the information. So it was incredible how people are able to kind of tee this up. But I don't know if that helps you. So there's resources out there, there's places to go. I don't know if I really can answer that too well. Oh man. Okay, so what type of burnout have I experienced and what can I do to prevent it? So I'll start with the preventing of it first. And I think that is realizing where your limits are, realizing that it's not all on you and it's not your problem to solve. Realizing that working together as a team makes all the difference in the world. So when I first started working with the Michigan Cyber Range, just before our first engagement, there was 3 of us and we did 36 hours straight non-stop one day just because we wanted to make this event go off, and there were still all lots of challenges and stuff we needed to deal with. Being able to sit back and say, all right, let's plan this out. Let's figure out how we can all do this skill-wise and let everybody go and not try to control everything and make sure that it's done the way I want it to was a huge game changer for me. In other areas where everybody knows Bitcoin and all that, right? Yeah, okay. Nobody raise their hand. Wow, nobody knows what Bitcoin is. All right, well, anyways. So there's these virtual currency stuff that's floating around, and I was huge into that scene for a very long time. There were some hacks that happened that I pulled in, and I jumped in, and I wanted to kind of help save the day. And this is also while working full-time doing stuff at the Michigan Cyber Range. So I even took vacation time off to basically stay at home and code and work on this stuff. And again, this was all about my ego, truthfully, and putting this on myself, trying to get it done, not really sitting back and saying, you need to relax. You know, it's not something that you have to solve and come in and save the day on. So I think the biggest thing was just realizing what your limits are. That, you know, again, you've only got so many hours in a day. Where should you really spend your time? And trusting other people. Why am I not in Bitcoin anymore? Well, in truth, I was involved since I think it was like 2009 or something like that. And at the end of the day, the community just left a very sour taste in my mouth. They always assumed people were thinking the worst, that everybody was out to get them. And, you know, there's this hack that came in and I'm like, all right, I'll come save the day. I'll help. You know, I'm just like, I had like 3 guys. One was like in Brazil, you know, other was in the Netherlands. Everybody's around the world. And we're trying to make this stuff happen. And all the feedback we got was just negative. You know, you guys are scamming, you guys are lying, all this stuff. So I just got out of that community. So any last questions? We're going to wrap this up. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. You guys have been a great audience. Hope you have a great rest of GrrCON.